On the morning of January 6, 2021, President Donald Trump addressed a crowd of 50,000 supporters at a Save America rally held in front of the White House in Washington, D.C. Then, approximately 10,000 people went onto the grounds of the Capitol building. Some of those participating fought with police and broke into the Capitol building itself. The number of people involved in those violent activities is unclear, but in the end, it is estimated that between 2,000 and 2,500 people actually entered the building itself. That is about as far as I am willing to go with respect to the facts of this story.
Pablo el Molinero, the honest reportero, crazy güero vaquero, straight shooter caballero.
According to Wikipedia, and I quote, "The United States Capitol was attacked by a mob of supporters of Donald Trump in an attempted self-coup." This is the version of the story that is most often repeated in the mainstream media and by those opposed to Trump on both sides of the political aisle. But how true is it? Bret Weinstein described what he called a modern Cartesian crisis on his Dark Horse podcast, which is available on Rumble and YouTube. According to Weinstein, the Cartesian crisis describes the inability to be sure of anything, scientific claims, the basic facts of historical events, or even the degree to which a consensus is actually accepted by others. Let's look at a couple of prominent examples of the Cartesian crisis in modern American history. With the assassination of John F. Kennedy, for years the official and largely unchallenged version of events was that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone to shoot the president. There were always a substantial number of people who were skeptical about what actually happened, but their doubts were generally dismissed and put into a category collectively known as conspiracy theories. But the persistent disbelief of the official accounts of the incident has kept the story alive and even grown the number of proponents of alternative theories. Now, even with the release of what is believed to be all, or almost all, of the documents relating to the assassination, the full truth of what happened is still unclear. On the theme of extraterrestrial life, and especially the theme of UFOs, or the modernized term UAPs, it gets even crazier. In the interest of transparency, I confess that I have been a believer in UAPs for quite some time, so you can factor that into whatever you think of my evaluation. On July 8, 1947, the Roswell, New Mexico Army Airfield reported that they had recovered wreckage from a flying disc. The next day, the military retracted the statement and claimed that the debris actually came from a weather balloon. Whether or not you believe that the UFO part of the story is real, the official story was part of a cover-up because in the 1990s, the Air Force claimed that the wreckage was really from a classified project to detect Soviet nuclear tests. The Roswell incident began decades of Cartesian dissonance with respect to the UFO phenomenon. There were fuzzy photos, fuzzy videos, fuzzy eyewitness accounts, compelling personal stories, and endless conspiracy theories regarding the government's role in covering up the true stories. Richard Doty, a retired special agent with the United States Air Force Office of Special Investigations, claimed to have participated in an effort by the government to plant disinformation about UFOs in order to discredit the claims of some in the UFO community and to cover up secret military operations. What were those secret military operations? Well, how am I supposed to know? They're secret. With the relatively recent inclusion of social media into the mix, interest in the subject has only grown, and the military has been reluctantly forced to admit that there are things in the sky that they have no explanation for, or aren't willing to admit to. This has become the essence of the Cartesian crisis. Us outsiders just don't know what to believe. Some of the theories that I find compelling include the unidentified anomalous phenomenon are aliens, or they are actually non-human earthlings who have been with us forever, but who have hidden themselves from us for reasons known only to them. Or the UAPs are actually part of a secret military program. Or the aliens are actually demons and angels that have been observed since before biblical times. Or aliens are creatures from other dimensions which we are often unable to perceive with the limitations of our human bodies. There are countless other theories, but one of my favorites, since I made it up, is that Klaus Schwab of the World Economic Forum is himself an alien of the same reptilian race that tried to assist Hitler in World War II. He, along with his slimy human underlings such as John Kerry, seek to enslave the human race by depriving us of free speech and free will, therefore thwarting the natural evolution of the human race that might otherwise become a force against such tyranny by joining the Intergalactic Federation Against Tyranny, also known as the Good Guys. Klaus Schwab is from the lizard faction of the Intergalactic Federation for Tyranny and was planted among us because they fear that the development of humans' natural ability to remote view and see into the future could seriously challenge the plans of the Reptilian Insectian Alliance to dominate the universe. Well, it's a theory anyway. Another theory is that if you like this video and subscribe to this channel, you'd really be helping old Pablo out. You can also share this video with your friends if you were so inclined. Anyway, as coherent and obvious as my idea may seem, I can't actually prove it. So you can look online and decide for yourself what to believe. It's the same with pretty much all of the information we get every day. I'm not saying that just because I believe something that makes it true. Did we land on the moon? Well, I believe we did. But whatever did happen is what happened, and therefore is the truth. The problem we are facing now, especially in the era of Trump, is that so much of the information about many topics is skewed towards a point of view that is clearly left or right-leaning or is corrupted by other considerations. Let's look at the COVID-19 pandemic. How much of what we were told turned out to be untrue or at least questionable? Did the virus originate in that lab in Wuhan? Do masks work? There was no evidence, no studies, or any data at all supporting the notion that social distancing by 6 feet did anything at all. Someone just made that up. We were also told that if you got the vaccine, then you couldn't get sick and you couldn't transmit the virus to others. False and false. We were told that massive shutdowns were necessary to control the spread of COVID. Was that true? Well, I can't say, but many reputable experts in the field said that lockdowns were the wrong approach to dealing with the crisis. And how about ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine? Would they have been effective in treating someone with the disease? Obviously, I can't opine intelligently about that, but many frontline clinicians still insist that those drugs were effective and would have been very useful, but they were prohibited from even trying them lest they lose their medical licenses. That, despite the fact there would have been no adverse reaction from at least trying them, since the drugs had been on the market for decades and were understood to be extraordinarily safe. Early on, I think it's only fair to point out that no one really knew what we were dealing with, so it was understandable that mistakes would be made. People were afraid. But as time went on and questions arose about the veracity of many of the claims, some, especially within the Biden administration and the mainstream media, clung ferociously to those ideas, and the whole thing somehow became political. The powers that be invoked cancel culture to quell any dissonance concerning the COVID-19 policies. Very recently, Google admitted in sworn testimony before Congress that they were pressured by the Biden administration to suppress dissenting views about COVID on their YouTube platform. There were also powerful economic interests involved, especially with respect to the vaccines. Pfizer was a major sponsor on all the networks except Fox News, and I believe they were the main purchaser of advertising on CNN and MSNBC, but don't hold me to that. Big Pharma is also a major contributor to many politicians on both sides of the aisle. Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine aren't profitable since the patents ran out on them years before, so could there have been an economic interest in suppressing their use? You tell me. Despite my best efforts, I am not the person to debunk medical claims, so don't take my word for any of what I just said. I am simply repeating things that I have heard, albeit from sources that I respect, and that is the point of this video. What are we supposed to believe? As soon as reports came out that Donald Trump had been shot in the ear in Butler, Pennsylvania, I saw people post on Facebook that the whole thing had clearly been staged. Do I believe it? No. Is it possible? I guess so. Thus is the nature of conspiracy theories. Others, like the story of the JFK assassination, are more believable. I used to believe that Oswald acted alone, but now I'm not so sure at all. So now let's look at the events leading to the riots at the Capitol on January 6th. I believe that the presidential election of 2020 was rigged. By rigged, I mean that there was an effort made by the government and the mainstream media to do anything they could to prevent Donald Trump from being reelected. I have made my case in 2 previous videos where I direct my comments to CNN correspondent Jake Tapper. If you are interested in those arguments, I invite you to go watch those videos. Do I believe that the election was stolen? Well, about that I'm not so sure, but I do believe that it is possible. The pandemic was a crazy time, and I think there were circumstances that point out that possibility, not the least of which was the attitude of the press and what I believe was the illegal behavior of the government with respect to the Russian collusion investigation and the Hunter Biden laptop story. Why wouldn't they go a step further and turn a blind eye to illegal voting? Recently, there was a report in the Washington Examiner and on Blaze Media that there were 274 plainclothes FBI agents in the crowd at the Capitol on January 6th. My first thought was, well, that certainly changes the story. Why didn't we hear about that before? Like when then FBI Director Christopher Wray testified before Congress. Later, current FBI Director Kash Patel clarified that the agents were sent in for crowd control after the event had been declared a riot. That still doesn't answer any number of questions concerning that day. Who were those agents and where were they during the protest? When was the event declared a riot? Was it before the barriers were breached? Was it before the violent break-in of the Capitol building itself? There are a number of videos showing people committing acts of violence and incitement who have never been identified and never been charged. Were these people plainclothes FBI agents? Why was there a seemingly insufficient number of Capitol Police guarding the Capitol building that day? One member of the Capitol Police, Officer Harry Dunn, apparently lied under oath more than once about his involvement and that of members of the Oath Keepers group that day. I urge you to look at the video titled "A Day in the Life of Harry Dunn, Part 2, The Oath Keepers" on Blaze TV's YouTube channel. I shall provide a link in the description. The House Republicans nominated 2 members, Jim Jordan of Ohio and Jim Banks from Indiana, to the Congressional Special Committee tasked with investigating the January 6 riot. Nancy Pelosi rejected the choice of the opposition party and installed anti-Trump Republicans Liz Cheney from Wyoming and Adam Kinzinger from Illinois to the committee instead. This effectively meant that the Democrats' version of events would go completely unchallenged in the investigation. I mean, there were lies told about that day. Why is that? Many questions have been left unanswered, such as who planted the pipe bombs at the Democratic Party and Republican Party offices in Washington. The list goes on and on. I think it's fair to say that the authorities have not exactly been forthcoming with respect to many of these doubts. So look, one of my brilliant producers points out that everyone looks at events with their own biases, me included. Do I want to believe that the break-in of the U.S. Capitol to have been part of a great left-wing conspiracy and as a result reduce the culpability of the protesters and by extension Donald Trump himself? Yeah, maybe. Wikipedia described the event as an auto coup. Not that they believed it was or that many believed that it was. They said that as if it were a cold hard fact. Well, it's not. I believe that the so-called deep state is completely capable of staging a riot, and I am also convinced the upper leadership of our intelligence community intentionally and illegally did things to damage the chances of candidate Trump and to impede and disrupt the administration of President Trump. But do I know that for a fact? This is Pablo El Molinero, or is it?